All right, welcome to the P.A.T Life Podcast. I am Patrick, and I have with me again Dan Daly and Mr. Ken Lee, the founders, owners, creators, and teachers/coaches for Kinstructive Minds. Wanted to bring you guys on because I know you guys just launched your first programming workshop, setup that you guys had in February. So I'd love to just chat about what it is that you guys are doing specifically, and then kind of what we talked about before here, some of the different things that we can teach coaches, but also then pass on to clients, and then just getting people in not just shape, but overall a better lifestyle. So that being said, Dan, do you want to just reintroduce yourself and then pass it on to Ken?
Yeah, sure. Thanks again for having us. It's always good to chat. So we're excited to talk about our new program. And I'm Dan Daly. I'm a personal trainer. I run a coaching consulting business for myself, Train Daly. And I also just co-founded and started a coaching development or professional development course, Kinstructive Minds, with my friend and colleague, Ken. Ken and I have been working together for over a decade, friends for a while as well, and decided to collaborate on this project, both within kind of a wheelhouse that we were kind of doing on an individual level and wanted to expand and scale. And this year was a really terrific time to pursue some of those things, and we're really excited about it. And we just want to share some of our best practices from our own personal coaching side and help other people do the same and be successful.
Absolutely.
Pat, thanks for having us on. Super excited to be here and just kind of share a little bit more about Kinstructive Minds and just kind of what we're looking to do, not only for the industry, but also for professionals. Some background information about myself. Been in the industry, I think probably technically since I was 14. It's about 20 years of experience. Really just what kind of drew me to fitness in general was the ability to help people, but also just kind of go through that transformation process and combination of, the physical aspect, but obviously a lot of the mental components that, it kind of entails with the journey of fitness. So in terms of Kinstructive Minds as a whole, one of the main reasons why we decided to kind of create this was really just to have a one-stop shop for professionals to get a better understanding of self, getting a better kind of grip on how to orient themselves, which directly relates back to their business. And then ultimately, how do you bring everything in a full circle? For Dan and I, we've kind of taught in different modalities and different platforms over within our careers. We found out it was really difficult to actually just have a one-stop shop, to have a system where people were coming in for development. And that's really kind of where Kinstructive Minds was derived from. It was a situation where you're taking these different courses with these different professionals, and it's a lot of information, but ultimately, how can you absorb it? How can you apply it? How can you teach it, and kind of how to cultivate it?
Absolutely, man. And so we'll kind of dive into the nuts and bolts of all that, but how was your guys' first launching in early February? Give me just kind of a breakdown of that whole experience for you guys.
I guess I'll start if you don't mind, Ken. We're super excited about it. A lot of this system we apply ourselves, and Ken and I have been working on this for 10 months, and really it's best practices from the last 10 years. But we set some goals for ourselves and worked super hard and collaborated with a bunch of different individuals, and it was a team effort, and we're excited with the launch. We nearly hit our initial goal, and we've got a great group of coaches on the call, tons of engagement. We love the content. We love the feedback. We're really excited. We're learning and refining like anything else, but we're excited to grow and scale this. And I think we're off to a really good start. So no complaints here.
Yeah, I mean, kind of following with that, I think one of the biggest things that we wanted to focus on, it's almost creating a system and creating a group, an environment of culture that resonates not only with us, but also making sure that our personalities can be shown within our group. So it's kind of Dan's point, we have about 15 users currently that are part of this Kinstructive Minds initial kind of round. And then we have a pretty diverse group, but there's a central theme of people who are looking for self-betterment. There's a central theme where people want to earn more within their lives, but ultimately kind of create a lifestyle that makes the most sense for them. And it's pretty refreshing to teach them and teach these individuals and kind of be able to hear some of their specific stories and their challenges. And then also how we can help serve, just kind of the greater good of what they're looking for from their experience.
Absolutely. And the biggest thing of why I wanted to go more in with you guys is because obviously just my platform, I'm willing to talk to anybody. It's really also about the P.A.T is not just my name, but it's present awareness training. That's what I'm trying to do as well in regards to a lot of things you guys are saying here. And I think it's vital, and especially now with the times, as you said, being like this, people going, okay, things are changing. How do we adapt? How do we not just then adapt, but then find our potentials, figuring out what those are? And that's what, when I talked to Dan last time, getting more information about what you're doing, it just genuinely interests me in hearing what you guys are after and what you're trying to pursue, because it is you guys are just saying it's coming from a genuine place to do well, to help, learning as you go. As you guys already know, that's the whole point of growing is all right, what are the obstacles? What do we do? What can we get better at? And so my question to you is, with the world we living in now, with social media, you're seeing so many people going to these, hey, for 1995, here's some person who has a ton of followers and looks good, and you're seeing people doing that. How are you with your, I know you're doing it specifically with coaches, but how are you in the mindset of like, okay, how do we not compete, but how do we use that and understand what seems to be the demographic of what consumers are looking for? I don't know if that is a clear question, but I'm just trying to make sense of at least how trainers are like yourselves are really learning how to adapt with that as well.
It's a great question, Pat. I think one of the first things we look at as a whole, it's more on the baseline of just understanding the entire training industry as a kind of just central ecosystem. And to your point, there's different modalities in terms of how people can charge, for a price point and what does that look like? At the end of the day, we want our professionals to help shape the experience based upon the clientele that they want, as opposed to the central marketplace. So we want to be conscious of, what the offerings are, but also having our students really kind of cultivate themselves, and that directly transcends into their business model. So it's almost like believing in yourself will translate to what you're trying to advertise or almost kind of speak to the world towards. So when you're talking about differentiation of product and services and stuff, we really try to get to the deeper reasons of why people think the way they think. And it really just goes back to their core values and kind of the messages that they want to share with the world. And
Right.
From there, we go through this transition period where we basically take our individuals for the first 4 weeks and basically take their components as individuals directly into their business model. And essentially, it's more of them kind of figuring out what kind of life they want to live, as opposed to trying to fit the standards within the industry. And then one other kind of key point is really just looking at, when you look at product differentiation or service differentiation, these are a lot of questions that we bring up to our coaches, and we have them ask these questions for themselves in terms of, it's not so much about how much do I want to make, it's more about what kind of life do I want to live, and how can I figure out the equation to reach that success. So it's a lot less of what the rest of the industry is doing, but you want to be conscious of those things
Right.
to kind of, charge the price that you want to charge, and, essentially what is your time worth, as an individual owner.
Absolutely. And anything you want to add to that, Dan?
Yeah, I think, we're trying to stand out by developing the person first, like Ken said, and meeting them where they're at, so it's not necessarily a sales workshop or another modality workshop, but it's what are they trying to achieve? And looking back on the way the industry was a year ago, it's a lot of the same principles, but how are you applying those principles to a new model? Are you able to adapt? And you talked about awareness and evolution, which a lot of things we're covering in this first section, where we're very much focused on self and you and personal development.
Right.
That's really how we're trying to stand out. So to differentiate between someone who's selling a $20 program and has a ton of followers, what does that look like? How do you market yourself? What's the substance behind that? Are you going all in on social? Is that something you need to be doing? Do you get fulfillment from that? Does it serve your audience? We're trying to look at all those things. I think a lot of these things we're seeing are sometimes so unilaterally or myopically focused on one thing. A lot of these personal development workshops are very business oriented or salesy oriented. Again, we're just trying to develop the person and see what comes out of that for themselves and help them kind of figure out what they want instead of trying to adapt to something that someone else is already doing.
Yeah. Now, are you seeing, being with the shift that we're experiencing right now, do you see other professionals like yourself with similar models that are coming out? Have you got any word from people obviously that you may have worked with in the past who are doing similar approaches as you guys are? And if so, what are you guys collaborating? Are you seeing differences? Or just in general, research, is there anyone else doing something similar at the moment that you're aware of?
Yeah, I mean, I think just based upon our industry, I think there are like certain platforms that currently exist in terms of developmental side of things. But like to Dan's point, you find like situations where it's very heavy towards like the business and marketing aspect, which and then for some people seems too salesy. And then on the other spectrum, you find people that are definitely very oriented in the training aspect, which is important. Obviously, business cultivation is good, but they're not necessarily taking the central theme that we are in terms of again like the more you understand yourself and the more you're refined, the better your product's going to be in terms of the message you're trying to share with the world. And then to your question about like collaboration, I think we're ultimately open to those things kind of as we get down the line. Dan and I have been in the industry for a long time now. We have colleagues and peers that are working on, I would say, similar yet different projects. And I think we'd be open to kind of exploring like, cross collaboration, cross branding, because I do think there's an opportunity within the marketplace where everybody can share. But currently we're not working with anybody like directly.
Yeah. Now because this is just something curious, your idea sounds so, with kind of having a one-stop shop, it sounds so, duh. But why hasn't this been something from your guys' point of view that has been out there up until this moment? Or do you feel that, what are your thoughts on that? If it hasn't?
I think the best coaches adopt best practices from a variety of different modalities, and they're all kind of governed by principles. And I don't know that industry education thus far has been so heavily focused on one modality and the dogma around that, and probably doing a good job of having people buy into that culture, but sometimes at the exclusion of other things. And I think an evolution of our coaching over the last decade, 10 years, has been adopting coaching practices, has been adopting self-development practices, has been adopting good business practices, and also having some of the modalities and the skills of exercise science to back those things up, but really packaging that all in a very holistic way and teaching people what those pieces are, and then maybe assessing and self-auditing to determine, where you may be lacking in some of those areas that might be holding you back from the big picture.
Yeah. Now, because as you just said, there's like a holistic approach. What I was experiencing, obviously, at the establishment that we all worked at, myself included at times, is the mindset that we always have is this allopathic, you can compartmentalize of like, oh, if I just take FRC, that's the answer. Oh, if I just focus more on nutrition, that's what I was missing. Oh, the whole time it was regenerative, like, you know what I mean? So I feel like that becomes the thing you learn. It's this constant education. You're getting information from the trainer standpoint, and then you're seeing yourself then going, wait a minute, I'm missing something, you know what I mean? For a lot of people, or you get the trainers and coaches who are very much like, no, I do it one way. This is how I do it. Your injury is because you weren't paying attention. Unfortunately, that's just the truth. So I don't know if you guys agree with that, but when you're coaching with what you're doing now, I know you're starting off with just them getting to know themselves as the coaches. Do you have something in there in the curriculum talking about the holistic aspect? Is there something you guys want to dive into that?
For sure. I mean, I think there's so many different layers to kind of what your question looks like. I think going back to kind of just like, kind of hitting that central point with yourself, like one of the things we talk about in our course is really system development and system alignment within ourselves. So essentially, like, if you don't have a focal point of like how much you're sleeping, obviously like a good dietary basis, managing your stress, your recovery, and your training, it's going to be very difficult to kind of hit some of the bigger goals you have as an ecosystem. We also talk about a lot of the efficiency of like, how can you stay efficient with some of these things? And I think Dan mentioned a lot of it goes back to like auditing and self-auditing. So it's almost like, what is your goal? What is your timeline? And can you actually create actionable steps towards those things? As we get deeper in the course, we revisit a lot of topics that are essential themes to kind of just focus on kind of the bigger picture for what people are looking to get done. And things kind of like funnel and feed. There's like a recurring theme and process where we start to target, some of the specific questions or challenges that like coaches and professionals have.
Okay. And
just as an example, sleep is a governing principle that's going to affect how you manage yourself. It's going to affect your business. It's going to affect your training. So having an appreciation for how that could be a big umbrella of something to focus on and have a high influence in all three of these areas.
Right.
Maybe some of those buckets are full in terms of like your training is great, and your business is okay, but like your life outside of that could be better. There could be something you can be managing a little better. We're really trying to take a look at all of that and teach them how to use some systems to analyze that and put all those pieces together to identify where their weaknesses are and maybe what's holding them back.
Anything you want to add, Ken?
Yeah, Paz, can I? Yes, thank you. So, yeah, just going back to like, kind of the central question you had, it's kind of like a compounding factor where like, if they can understand themselves, that directly translates to their business and how they want their business. And then to your specific question of like, how do you essentially filter content? Those concepts have already been established throughout the course of the first 9 weeks, because we ask people these open-ended questions about themselves to provide clarity in their direction. So in a lot of cases, like, to your point of like, whether it's like FRC answers the questions or PRI, whatever the case is, it's more about understanding your specific model in terms of your business and what you want out of your experience, as opposed to basically fitting these different types of services and courses within there. It's almost like this giant education filter. So in a lot of cases, professionals, we've taken all these different courses and classes, and ultimately, like, we can probably use some of it. How much are you actually using that is directly applicable to your current business? And for most of us, unfortunately, that might not be the case. So what we really try to focus on with our, the individuals in our groups is for them to kind of self-identify those things for the first 9 weeks. And then on the back end of the course, we actually have a part of our like development goes into, does your current assessment model fit what you're trying to speak to? Does your product service offering directly reflect who you're trying to like touch, essentially? And then lastly, when you're actually presenting this package to your client or clients or your audience, is it representative of what you're doing? Essentially, like, if your specialty is with like kettlebells and movement, but you're basically advertising something completely different, you may be missing the mark and speaking to an audience that you may not even try to capture.
Absolutely. I mean, what you guys are demonstrating is there's so many different aspects that, as you said, that goes into really not just being the best coach or being the best mentor in any capacity, but is really looking inward. And I think that's the biggest thing from my experience, at least in the last year, where people are starting to really take that seriously. We've all had the clients, and ourselves included at times, where they are so successful, like you said, Dan, they're so successful in their jobs. They're all these other pieces because it's a lot of it's in their head. It's problem solve solution. But the minute you sometimes get them in the gym where they need to be in the body, there's such a disconnect. And I don't know about you guys in your experiences, but I saw that more often than I could even imagine, even to the simplest moments of having clients being like, hey, I want you to lay on your back. We're gonna start doing something. Excuse me? Just lay on your back. Go, just lay on the mat. And they just couldn't comprehend it because they're so in their head that everything is here. And you're starting to also see it with the trainers, as we were saying, of finding what your niche is, what you can. What really kind of speaks to you in regards to training style, but then how to then apply it, where you get people so caught in their head about the certificate or the idea of like, oh, I'm FRC now, or I'm this, and it's not bashing them. It's just becoming, as you said, there's so much content in there that you're kind of, for a lot of people, it seems like they're disconnecting with the content just to be like, let me just get this certificate so I can wear that kind of that armor. And that was something I was noticing even in myself at times, where I was like, did I really comprehend everything that was presented to me? Could I have learned more? Could I have really sat with some of this information? So that all being said, is there a way that you guys are helping people sit with the information that you're giving them? So they're not just getting a Kinstructive Minds course. I don't know if you guys are doing certifications or not, but is there anything that you guys are doing to help really push people towards that self-awareness of what's being taught?
For sure. I mean, I think like a central theme of our course really goes back to some basic principles of like self-awareness, reflection, and then obviously direct application. That's kind of like a central theme that we talk a lot about on our website in terms of like what we want people to get out of their experience. I think the way that Dan and I work as like a unit, it's more about taking the content and making it tangible for the user and directly applicable based upon their experience. So it's a lot less of like, hey, so you just take this certification or this course and you get CEUs and then see you later. It's more about creating this systematic kind of ecosystem and community of professionals who can basically share, cultivate, and with each other. They can bounce ideas off of each other, which we have. So we have a Facebook group that's designed for a community page. So we actually take, prior lectures and content. We have people kind of share their experiences. So that way it opens up a networking opportunity. We also have breakout rooms where we basically go through specific content that is pertinent to the slides that we cover. So people are actually able to collaborate, process, kind of discover and explore. And then we've also been pretty extensive with our Q&As where we actually dive a little bit deeper, making sure our users understand the content. And then I guess the last two pieces is we also have workbooks for our users that pretty much helps reinforce so they can kind of see the flow of what we're talking about. And then also, we also have team leaders to help people, have that support system that, sometimes professionals, may need.
That's awesome, man. See, you guys really, I mean, I didn't think otherwise. Maybe you can, I agree. Dan, I was a little questioned about his approach to this whole thing, but no, that's awesome, man. From my position, I was telling Dan I would love to take the course. I'm looking forward to when that next sign up is. And just trying to really understand, like, again, that's the biggest thing is we're in an age right now where everyone's just looking for knowledge and action. And I think that's what, you guys are doing really well, just from hearing what you're saying. And with all that being said, are you already, with the people you've worked with, I know it's only been about a week and a half, are you getting, I saw you said a post about some feedback, but are you guys getting a lot of feedback in regards to what you guys are putting out there?
Yeah,
if I could jump in on that, Ken, I'm really motivated by the evidence and data. And one thing we're trying to do is collect a lot of information. So a lot of what Ken was just suggesting or talking about, we're documenting a lot of this. So we're having them set goals. There's practical exercises where we're recording information. So far, we're getting a lot of anecdotal feedback, texts, phone calls, people cross-promoting and sharing things on social media. But we really want to be able to measure these things. We have a pretty robust intake form when people sign up. We're trying to get some demographic information on where these people are coming from, their education, income levels, experience, things like that. And we want to start to correlate that. We already know in terms of goal setting that just for example, when you have somebody focus on one goal, there's a much higher likelihood of them achieving that goal than when you have them focus on multiple things.
Right.
And to your point, in this age of information where there's so much out there and we have so much at our fingertips, I think a lot of us are kind of like drinking from a fire hose. And we don't necessarily know how to apply it or what we should be focused on. So we're trying to distill that down a little bit, narrow down their focus, have them set some concrete goals. We've got some actionable takeaways and practical exercises that we're holding them accountable to. And I think a big win for this course over typical courses that might be like a weekend long, ours is 12 weeks. So it's a nice amount of time. Even if you look at like an exercise program, a 90-day program is a nice amount of time to see some good adaptation. And adaptation here is improvement in their self and maybe improvement in their finances is ultimately really what they want. To just kind of circle back with what we've discussed already, maybe you are making 6 figures and you have 25 clients and you have 8 certifications, but like, are you happy? What we're trying to get them to identify is what do they really want? And can they get those things aligned? And then maybe some of these other, superficial pieces of success kind of fall into place, but they're a little bit more focused on those intrinsic motivators or intrinsic happiness.
So might seem like a toss-up question, but did you find through your own experiences and the people you've met along the way that's basically helped you create this company, is that the most successful people that you've experienced are the ones who really have that internal awareness of self and, as you said, what they want? And if so, what were your experiences with those types of people in regards to what was your, being people like yourself who are very driven by that as well? What was your takeaway? So people who maybe don't know what it's like to be around somebody who's just driven by, like, I know what I want in life. I genuinely want to do well, because being New York, all of us dealing with people, it's like, what are people's first question? All right, what's the catch here? What are they trying to do? And sometimes you realize it's like, I get why someone might be conditioned that way, when really actually meeting somebody who's like, no, I want help. I found a career that I genuinely enjoy where I can feel like I can give something back to the world. So that's just from my point, is like, all right, I understand it in these big cities, but from your guys' point, what have been some of your interactions with maybe some of your people in your program or just in the past where it really was like, wow, this is somebody who's living kind of what you guys are talking about? Is there anything that kind of comes to mind? Any particulars?
I think it becomes difficult. I mean, I think along your process and your journey, whether you're like a coach or, you're a younger athlete or you're like a manager, whatever the case is, it's like you run into different people that you resonate with and that you kind of respect in terms of how they've oriented their lives. And I think for Dan and I on like, I guess a personal level, I think we always had a vision of like what a perfect life would look like. And I think it took some time to kind of go through your own trials and tribulations. Your decision making when you're younger, like you don't have as much foresight as you'd like to, and then you end up making some different choices. But kind of just like going back to like, how can you find clarity with what your purpose is? Going back to its basic form, it just goes back to like what is the life you want to live, and what is the kind of root cause for me to get there? Like what am I driven by? What am I passionate by? What is the meaning of how I live important to me, and how can I set up my pieces, so to speak, to be in that place? I think when you have a good understanding of what those fundamentals look like, whether it's like your family, personal success, business success, you can start to put together these different pieces as you kind of go through your journey. And it's difficult too, because like you're going to find different mentors and different people that you resonate with. And I wouldn't say it's basically one individual and copying like, for example, like, whatever, Simon Sinek or Kobe Bryant. It's like, it's not necessarily copying one kind of blueprint of their experience, but it's almost like I resonate with these individuals for these reasons. I'm passionate, like they're passionate towards these things. How can I make their successes and the information that they've shared with the world into my own vision? And that takes time. It's a lot of work, but as long as you're consistent through those processes, you're able to accomplish kind of life you want to live.
What's interesting than what you said is we do, because as we've said, we have a materialistic mindset for a lot of people. Some people don't want to necessarily know how to take the time to go inwards. People who might be inspired by like a Kobe or a Simon Sinek or whatever, where it's like, it becomes almost a sense of idol worship, where it's like, I'm so enthralled with who you are. And it's like, sometimes I feel we experience people not seeing the bigger picture or missing the mark, where, as you said, it's like, all right, what are some of the principles, the morals, their work ethics, whatever the case is, that I can be inspired by rather than worship. I feel that is something we see also as well with the training community, is people want to be like somebody else. And obviously you guys are doing just that, of teaching, don't do that, be you. So who is you? So if I may, this might seem a little loaded question. If I'm someone in your class and I'm asking you guys, like, who is Ken? Who is, like, I know this is a loaded question here, but I'll start with Dan to make it a little easier on you, Ken, there. But like, why, if I'm being the skeptic, why do you, Dan, care about my well-being? Like, what is it that makes me believe that you actually care? And I'm loaded the question only because it's Dan here, but I also know I know you, but I want to help people understand that there are trainers out there who really do care. It's not about just, people think counting reps or, just about making it about them and their Instagram pages. There are people who will want to be coaches and mentors. And I know you guys have that. And if you guys may kind of chime a little bit about why do you care about my well-being, Dan?
Well, I wasn't necessarily saying that I do.
I was
You're going to put words into my mouth.
That.
I don't know. I feel like there's so much there. I mean, just getting into this industry comes from a very like altruistic personality type, or I don't know, motivation that we enjoy helping people, seeing people succeed. I know Ken and I are very driven from like a team experience and collaborating, and we appreciate that the sum is going to be greater when we're working with everybody and leveraging people's strengths and making it more of a team approach than when we kind of go about it all of ourselves. We're very social beings, and we can appreciate that. And there's like a threshold of happiness, particularly as it pertains to finances. And it's, some of the science says it's like $75,000 a year. And so like, what are the other pieces of being happy and successful? Ken and I are very ambitious about this program, particularly financially. But I think one of the things that motivates us is we like the game of it, so to speak, or just the project, or working on something, collaborating with one another. And we really want to create community and culture and kind of bring people on board with that as well. So while we want to share a lot of the best practices that we're doing, we also want to get people involved. We would love to hire our participants to instruct for us. we would love for them to bring some of their expertise and skills. There's so much of this program or this business that we can't do or we're not doing yet. And I guess that's what motivates me is I want to help people. I want to bring people together and work towards something bigger than myself. I want the financial success. I want the personal fulfillment, and I think we get that. We get that by helping others and kind of looking beyond ourselves.
Absolutely. Is there anything you want to add, Ken?
Yeah, definitely. I felt pretty good about answering the question first too, but I appreciate that, Pat. I think Dan definitely hit the nail on the head in terms of some of the things that I definitely share with him. I mean, that's why we make such a good team together. I think first, it's definitely fulfillment. It's almost like, to me, the gift of life is the ability to give and the ability to give back. And him and I have mentored and taught for many years, and to kind of see the personal success and how you impact individuals, it really just brings a level of fulfillment on a deeper level for myself, where it makes work not necessarily work. And I think being able to kind of see the successes and the challenges that I've had to be able to pass it on to others, especially in almost their own vision, is something that is really important to me and really special to me. I had this kind of slogan when I was growing up as a kid. I think I was maybe about 12 years old. And I came up with this concept of like, my goal in my life is to change as many lives as I can, as long as I'm on this earth. And, I've been able to do luckily like a lot of that. And I've been able to, influence and impact people. And I feel like this medium is a way to just share on a grander scale and be able to empower people around us. I think especially in this day and age, there's so much courses, there's so many, there's like all this different kind of content. It's a lot less about us and it's a lot more about them. But we're still conscious of making sure that we can kind of take care of the people that are around us. It's like, we understand that our time is valuable. We understand their time is valuable, but how can you come up with this equation where you're able to give back to people to basically leverage their skills and their abilities, but also make sure that you can be successful within our own ambitions and goals, right? I think a lot of times you kind of get these like two extremes to your original question. On your left hand, you have individuals that are all about me, and they put this facade up of like, I care about my clients, I care about people around me, but they're just driven by money because they never scratch the deeper levels of what makes them happy, right? And then you find these other challenges within our industry or on the left side where it's like, I want to give all my time away for free, but because I've given away all my time, I'm not fulfilling my own financial needs or my own security within a professional. And I think for Dan and I, like to his point about our financial goals and things we want, we understand that our byproduct of success will be through culture, transparency, and kind of the people that we capture more than anything. So we're not really overly concerned about, we'll run through challenges as we come, but we're not so concerned about like how we impact people and who ends up, being a part of what we do, because our central message and theme is being honest, to be honest with you. Like I think that's like the biggest kind of message and takeaway. Like people can kind of see past the facade in a lot of cases. And the people we are lucky enough to teach right now understand that there's a lot of depth and complexity behind what we do, and that we do generally care about their overall well-being and success.
Yeah, those are great answers. And other than the fact that Dan had his written down and I can see him reading off it. Anyway, I love it, man.
Thank you for sending those ahead of time, by the way. I don't like being put on the spot.
Of course. Let's say I was really hoping you would get those lines down in the way you would pause when I said beat. So I'm glad you caught on to that. But no, that was awesome, man. And it's always inspiring for me to even being a trainer, like you want to be around that energy, as you guys were saying. It's creating community where people are in that same mindset and or feeding off of that frequency, that energy of like, hey man, this is what we're doing. And it's obviously coming from, as you said, an honest, genuine place. And I just love that we're seeing more of that, especially in people in positions like your guys's, where you have knowledge, you have this years of experience, trials and tribulations, and people willing to take a step outside of themselves after knowing who they are and what they want to go, all right, how can I just help? How can I give? And I don't know about you guys, but when you're a trainer and people are coming constantly like, oh, you're a trainer, I have this. Like I get such a thrill out of that, because it's like, not that, people are like wanting our attention all the time, but more so in the sense of like, hey, they genuinely are asking me for help. Can I step up to the plate and actually give them something? Even if it's just as simple as, hey, this is what it appears to be, or this is something I've seen. I can't say with certain, but just helping them get in the right direction of their well-being. So that experience of like, yeah, last time I had a conversation with a trainer, like he was so kind or she was so kind and they gave me what they possibly could in the moment. And it's just, yeah, as you said, it's like, it's an altruistic mindset in a way, but at the same time, both parties, it's a win-win, right? If you're genuinely come from a good-hearted place, like the win is just giving, being, being selfless in the moment. But there's the selfishness in the sense of like that's what feeds you, right? I don't know about you guys, but that's what really drives me is like just feeling like, hey, I'm giving you something in the moment. That's not about currency. It's not about anything other than just your well-being, and then that feeds off of the well-being. So I know I kind of went on my own tangent there, but is there anything you guys relate to that, or anything you want to add on, or you guys good to move on?
I mean, I would say it's validating to your point. And the best relationships are two-way streets. So we're both getting fulfillment out of it. And, I don't really want to coach someone if it's not fulfilling for me. And if they're not getting what they want out of it either, it's not going to be successful. And a big part of this when we look at coaching is it's like when you can coach, it's not just coaching fitness, you're coaching anything. And I think a big thing Ken and I want to do is get away from this one-on-one model and really be able to scale and get in front of a larger audience and share that with people. And the first step in that is this group program. So it's just another scalable way for us to seek or have that fulfillment too.
Nice. Is there I know you guys are in the first week. Are you willing to share, or can you share kind of what the like some of the other weeks are looking like, kind of what people are looking towards, or is that like hush
Yeah,
hush?
no, that definitely. No, we can definitely. I mean, so just kind of a general overview. First 4 weeks are definitely geared towards personal development. That's the whole concept of like the U, business, and education. Right now, we're basically wrapped up, just going through the refinement stage. So the first couple weeks of the course are really just geared towards who are you, what are your goals, what's important to you, and why. And then we started like integrating different types of systems for them. So I think before I mentioned like system alignment, so we really just focusing on like yourself first, really making sure you have clarity in terms of how many hours of sleep you need, what does your current diet look like, your sustainability of what you're working on, and then just making sure you're prioritizing the right things. Today we just wrapped up a course on refinement and just kind of looking at, are you taking the necessary steps to be conscious of what you're doing? Are you getting critical feedback from the people that matter about what your process looks like? And then ultimately, how are you looking for self-betterment in the long run? In terms of like things to kind of look forward to in a couple weeks from now, we'll start to dive into the business section. And in this section over here, we're basically taking a look at the current service model that professionals have, and then how to refine that and cultivate that. We're going to have a couple small group activities, which goes into like, what are the core values of your actual business? Like we talk about the marketing aspect. We talk about the differentiation of different websites and platforms based upon their service model. And then on the back end of the course, we start going into like, how do you put it all together? Like, what does this look like? Do you have something that's tangible? And then that kind of just segues for those individuals who might be interested in our like higher level small group mentorship. We have a couple people that are currently participating, but it's more about looking at like a specific challenges or issues within their current service model and just how to address those things.
Nice. Now with you guys doing coaching and explaining and educating about these different parts of self and diet, things like that, how, with as much as on your guys' plate, how do you guys manage those things? Do you guys hold each other accountable? Do you guys, I guess, how do you practice what you preach?
I guess I'll answer that. One is using some of the systems that we're talking about of managing ourselves. So, having those systems in place to take care of ourselves first, and then being efficient with our business plan and our pricing model, and being efficient with our time so that we can allocate some of our time and energy to some of these other things. And this year in particular has been a blessing in that way, to kind of free up some space to focus on some of those projects. And just working for yourselves, you're able to allocate some more of that time to some of the things that you're passionate about. I would say that I've always had pretty good balance, and it's been an evolution, but I probably have even more balance this year, and I'm really proud of that, and really satisfied and fulfilled thus far. And I just want to share that as well. And we were just talking about it today, just in terms of like time efficiency. I think was one of the last questions we had in our Q&A. just talking about how we have some systems in place to automate things throughout our day so we don't have to think about them so much and waste time or mental, physical, whatever energy it may be on making those decisions or focusing on that task. When you can automate some of those things, it frees up your capacity to do others. And I think Ken and I are both, those are probably that's probably some of our greatest strengths, the two of us. And I don't know, that's part of what we're sharing.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of like the life we want to live, I think Dan and I are on the same basis. I think we're both super ambitious. I think we're always going to want more for ourselves in all different levels, whether that's like, personal growth, business growth, financial growth, all those types of things. But at the same token too, like to the concept of kind of proof in your pudding or almost having our students kind of know us as individuals, some that know us on a personal level, and they know that like we wouldn't want to teach something that compromised something that we weren't living our lives by. And I think for like both of us, it took kind of time to situate. I think Dan and I are kind of used to having 3 or 4 jobs at a time, but ultimately, like when you're getting back to like it's like kind of root principle of what our course embodies, it's really just like going through your kind of hierarchies. It's like what's most important to you, excuse me, short term, medium term, long term, and then what do I need to kind of serve now? And then certain components of that concept are like my own non-negotiables. Like if I don't go to bed at a certain time and I don't sleep at the hours that I need, it's gonna be very difficult for me to do some of the things that I want for myself. And that even goes back into my own fitness and my nutrition and some of those types of things. So I think having your support system is also another important component. Dan and I keep each other pretty accountable. Like we talk 4 or 5 times a week on like formal meetings. And then we're also constantly texting and chatting within our specific group to kind of just go through business concepts, ideas, and things that we need to make sure that we get done. I think that's been pretty effective. Besides having your own like kind of intrinsic motivation, it's about surrounding yourself with the right people who are, again, elevating you. And I think we hear about it all the time too with like, be with those who elevate you, et cetera, which is like the concept. But to actually find the right partners that are giving you what you need your personal life, with my relationship with my fiance, or if it's Dan, my business partner, and some of the other players part of our group, they're giving you the balance that you need to complement your life. And those things are very difficult to find, especially in a state where there's so many health professionals and things are super competitive. I think it's a lot less about the sheer talent, but I think it's more about the raw intangibles that you can't find in other people. And then when you can find those things, that's when you have a very powerful team that's going to give you the things that you're ultimately looking for.
Absolutely, man. I love that. And it's because that is one of the things that you experienced maybe at your on one point in your life. I can say I have, where you aren't necessarily practicing what you're preaching, right? You do get trainers who are telling clients not to drink so much, and they're the ones who party all the time, but they look good. So the facade of the material sometimes for people can be very misleading, right? As you said, there's so many professionals. So I love that answer about just, again, having that community of people who are really going to support what it is that you're ultimately trying to accomplish and who you want to be. And I'm very, very excited about what you guys are doing. So this is why I really appreciate you guys doing this and coming on. So because we have about 15 minutes, I don't want to keep you guys too long, but before we go, my question for you guys, for someone who doesn't have a trainer, being that we're talking about helping people, and I know you guys have answered a lot of questions like finding yourself, but how could someone say, I don't have a trainer, I never really worked on this stuff. What are some steps that maybe I can do, not as a coach, but as just an individual, to start looking at how to work in and really find what it is that I want? I know that's a loaded question, so if you guys need a second, take a smoke. I know Dan's dying over there. Not just kidding. But how would you help somebody? I would like to end on, trying to give some sort of advice for maybe the everyday person who is watching.
Definitely. I mean, I think a good starting point is just, again, kind of what's important to you, kind of write those things down. I think a lot of times in fitness, there's like a surface level of like, I want 6-pack abs, but then it's like, well, why do you really want abs? Like, is it something that's really important to you? Like, do you care about those types of things? Like, is it related to your job? Like, are you in modeling or something? And ultimately, you want to ask people to kind of just think about what is really important to them for a magnitude of reasons. I think from there, obviously, like doing your best to do your own research, whether it's like going through somebody you trust who works in the industry to help kind of facilitate and kind of navigate what direction they're supposed to go into. And I think, one of the things that's really difficult about our industry, it's not like, this is like, Google, where you can kind of just Google what's a place to eat, like who has the best reviews. Like essentially, finding the right trainer professional is very challenging. But I think it's doable by having the right resources and the right lens. I think one of the best ways that people can find the right professional is listening to your podcast, because you're asking the right questions to the right people, and the people that you're capturing on this platform is going to give them different perspective. And the more perspective you have about the right content, the better educated decision you can make when it comes to choosing the right professional for you.
Absolutely.
Did you pay him to say that?
No, I didn't. Ken, I will give you the $20. No. Dan, did you want to say something? If you can also just, can you open the tab, that second tab I sent you, and just read what I put on there? Thank you. That'd be great.
A big premise of our program is that fitness is a $35 billion industry, and the average trainer makes like $60,000 a year. So it's a fragmented industry, but there's so much potential. And I feel like there's more than ever. And there's just so many avenues that you could take based on what you're motivated and passionate to do. Myself in particular, I had to reinvent my business last March and start from scratch and work for myself, and to identify a niche and decide to go like all in with swim in particular and start really heavily marketing that and speaking to those individuals, particularly if you're just working for yourself. There's so much business out there. So it's not like we're all like fighting over like, a finite amount of business. There's a ton of business.
Right.
And we could all be smarter about it and using our time more efficiently so that we have balance in our life, but we also have some of that personal and professional success and fulfillment. I just feel like there is a lot out there. I guess I kind of went off on that a little bit and forgot the origin of the question, but there is enough for everyone to be able to speak to those things. In terms of someone finding their trainer, there's a lot of great coaches out there. So maybe narrow down to Ken's point, like what you want, and maybe finding someone who speaks to that. I'm just thinking of you like being on this podcast now twice and seeing how that evolved. I'm starting to see you as the person who's having those conversations and getting people on. And that's just interesting. Like you're carving out your own niche during this time with those conversations. And Ken and I are doing that in our own way. And there's an opportunity for people to do that. And that's what we're helping our participants do, is kind of find that for themselves. And there's plenty of business out there. We don't need to be fighting over it, which goes back to the community, the culture, the collaboration. It's like, you're not going to take my clients, or you probably have an expertise, and it'd be great if you could jump in and help fill some of those gaps. But I'd share the wealth, I guess.
Yeah, man. That's one of the illusions, the deceptions of life, right? Is we've been told that, everything is this quick, finite, or it's a lot sooner than we are really being told about certain things. But it's a matter of, as you said, it's so cutthroat. Everything's cutthroat. Okay, well, that's if you're in like a small section, in a very tight space. And if you're trying to be in there, then yes, it might be more cutthroat. But if you just open your lens a little bit and actually take a step out and really think, okay, well, am I willing to look at this differently? You start to realize that it's just that there isn't. It's not as cutthroat, and you might find it in the most crazy. I don't want to say crazy, but just the most unusual places. It's just a matter, and maybe you guys can agree with this. Am I, as you said, am I in the right space mentally, emotionally, physically? For me, spiritually, where then you can go, all right, I'm willing to open my eyes and really accept an answer. Like, for example, I just did a podcast with a gentleman that I met through a community that I'm a part of, and he lost over 105 pounds in a year on his own. And I love those stories. My brother did the same thing. And I love those stories. And maybe you guys can agree, is that with trainers like ourselves, people sometimes think, oh, you're just in good shape, or you have you're lucky. I don't have that. So as much as we can give them like the ins and outs of intricacies and really encapsulate all of it, but they might not have that perception about us, where this gentleman here was the living, basically the living model of what it means to take that into your own life. And so many people, he said in his life, who were starting to come to him as guidance, as someone who maybe isn't a trainer, but just how do I get on that physical path, but that mental path of what you experienced. And I love those stories, because it's like, I can do that for you, but for someone who's lived it and people see that, it's so fascinating, where it's like you're finding training in the place you maybe never thought on both ends of that. Do you know what I mean? And he was like, I then was able to start referring people to people I knew who maybe had more experience about like the specifics. But it's sometimes just like finding when you're open-minded to, okay, I'm ready to make that change in my life for whatever that reason is. It can, when you really take that on, you can start to find in the most random places. And I think that's a beautiful thing with community, with starting to ask yourself questions, have people having these conversations, as you guys both said, because I feel today now people just want to, as I said, they want knowledge. They want to know, okay, what am I capable of? What are my goals? How do I find goals? And then ultimately, how do I get into a speedo like Dan Daly? I'm assuming that's what everyone's asking, in my opinion. I think that's the number one question on everyone's mind. But anyway, I just wanted to wrap up with some serious notes there. But anything you guys want to add before we wrap up here?
I'll just say in general too, like I think Constructive Minds as a whole, like we are excited for like what we're doing. We're excited. We've gotten tremendous feedback so far. I mean, I think if anybody's ever interested in learning more, they can contact you, Pat. Feel free to contact us at Constructive Minds via Instagram or info@constructiveminds.com. We're happy to answer any questions. We hope to be on your podcast at another point again, just to kind of chime in and chat a little bit more about our exploration. And lastly, our course and our development isn't just for those who are fitness professionals. Cool. It's for anybody who's looking for self-betterment.
Awesome.
It's a type of course that just kind of encompasses everything.
Love it. That was going to be one of my questions. Actually, I wasn't sure if you guys open it up to people who are outside the fitness industry. So that's great.
Yeah, I think that's the evolution of the course. And to your point a moment ago, the essence of coaching is bringing out the best in someone. So that individual, the reality is we have the answers within ourselves and coaches bring that out, and that person found it on their own. And then when you live that example, it attracts other people. So we're trying to empower our coaches to live the example that they want, to attract the energy that they want. And, but they, they already have those answers. We're just kind of, we're cultivating that a little bit.
That's awesome, man. Well, that all being said, where can people find you guys, specific, not the business, but you individually, so that if they want to follow you and get, more information?
Yeah, you can find me on social on all the channels, but I'm most active on Instagram at Dan Daly, and my personal coaching website is traindaly.com.
Cool.
And then you can find me at Natural Discipline 85. That's on Instagram. You can also find me on LinkedIn for direct contacts. And then question-wise, I already mentioned Constructive Minds.
Awesome. Yeah, if you don't mind just sending me where the links to like LinkedIn and stuff, that way I can put it in the show notes, and then just trying to get people over to you guys, because I know I'll be finding myself taking the class and everything, man. I'm looking forward to it. So dude, thank you guys for your time. I appreciate you coming on, and yeah, well, let's do this again when you guys are further down, so we can just see where it's at. What are some things you guys are experiencing along the way?
Thanks, Pat.
Cool.
Awesome, man. All right, guys, have a good one, and everyone else, enjoy. See ya.